Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2021 Latinx Kidlit Book Fest. We are here for our very last panel, and I'm so excited to be here with you all. My name is Zara Gonzalez Hoang. I am the author and illustrator of A New Kind of Wild and the illustrator of Mi Casa is My Home, written by Loren Sala. I'm so excited to be here in conversation with the amazing Raúl the Third. Give a little wave, but now I'm going to embarrass you with.
I was putting on my Speedy Gonzalez watch. Just
yes!
You know.
We were just talking about this right before we came on. Problematic, yes, but also to people of our age, one of the only representations of Latinx characters when we were growing up. So he holds a special place in our heart. Also shares our last name. In any case, I am going to read a little introduction about Raúl, who is amazing. So bear with me, Raúl, while I flatter you.
Yes.
Raúl the Third is a 3-time Pura Belpré Award-winning illustrator, author, and artist living in Boston. He has done amazing things in his career, from art to murals, and of course, what we're mostly going to talk about today, which is books. His fantastic books include the Lowriders in Space series, written by Kathy Camper. He's the author and illustrator of the Vamos series, including the most recent, Vamos, Let's Cross the Bridge, which was awarded one of the best children's books of 2021 from the New York Times and the New York Public Library. And he's also currently adapting these books into an animated TV show, which is fantastic. I can't wait. He also recently collaborated with another fantastic author, Jason Reynolds, on Stunt Boy in the Meantime, which came out and has been receiving rave reviews, and apparently is now a New York Times bestselling illustrator as of this week for that book. So congratulations, Raúl. That's a lot of stuff. Congratulations on everything. And welcome to the Latinx Kidlit Book Fest. We are so thrilled to have you.
Thank you, and congratulations on your newest book and on your first book.
Thank you.
They're amazing. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I forgot to say, please read our anti-harassment policy in the chat box. If you have any questions, please refer to that. Now, I don't know, is there anything you want to start us off by saying about any of your recent books before we go into the questions?
Um, you know, I will say that I feel very fortunate for all of my collaborators, whether it's Jason Reynolds on Stunt Boy, Matt Ringler on Stroller Coaster, David Bowles on Clockwork Curandera, or who did I miss? Kathy Camper on the Lowrider series. You know, each one of these authors has helped me to imagine and bring to life all sorts of things that I never would have done on my own. So thanks to them.
Awesome. So fantastic. And we're going to actually talk about in this little conversation a lot about being an author and an illustrator, both illustrating our own books, but also illustrating other people's. But
Okay.
first I wanted to start off a bit because I'm sure there's lots of young authors and illustrators in the audience who really would love to know how you got started. How did you start yourself on the path to becoming an author and illustrator?
Yeah. Well, Zara, I think I have a feeling you know the answer to this question. And I also have a feeling that all of those youngsters out there already know the answer to this, even though it might not seem like the answer right now. But it all begins with your very own obsession / interest and overall like passion for anything having to do with drawings and illustration. So when I was a kid, I was just blown away by the cartoons that I would watch on TV. So television and books to me are both as important. Okay, I'll just put that right out there. Television and books are as important to me and are as responsible for making me the artist that I am today. So I would watch TV and Speedy Gonzales would be on, or Huckleberry Hound, the Pink Panther, you name it, Chilly Willy. I was immediately enamored, and I would sit on the couch and I would try to draw them. 2, I loved going to the library, and sometimes I wouldn't even get through the written part of the book, but if it had an illustration in it, I was drawn to it. So books by John Bellairs with illustrations by Edward Gorey, Richard Scarry, Busytown, the newspaper having all sorts of cool strips. I would read everything from Kathy to The Far Side to, even Mary.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I would even read Mary Worth, for crying out loud. And I never even knew what was happening in that strip, And so those were the things that kind of ignited my imagination. But another thing that I did is I copied tons of illustrations, and I copied my favorite drawings from my favorite artist. And something that youngsters should know is that the more books you read from different people, the more artists you copy, well, all of them end up living in your mind, and somehow you will find a way to, regurgitate everything that you've learned and copied, and it kind of turns into its own unique thing through your pencil or whatever it is that you're using to create your artwork.
That's such a good answer. I mean, we all have, I think it's so cool as an artist to be able to like take in all of this stuff, right? Whether it's cartoons or even just like visual art and in a museum, things that you wouldn't think that could translate, but then it all comes out through our artist's eyes and our artist's hand into something completely different.
And then add to that the amazing, my own amazing cultural background, Juarez, my mom's family from Mexico, my dad's family from Isleta, the desert, el español y el inglés, all of it combined with all of the art that I was loving, and here we are.
Yeah, it's such an amazing mishmash of stuff. So, I mean, that really kind of talks about how you found your voice as an illustrator, I think. Is
Mm-hmm.
that also how you found your voice as an author? Because, as I would say, as an illustrator, I've been illustrating for a long time, and I wrote when I was a kid, but I kind of stopped somewhere along the way. I kept drawing, but I didn't write as much. So for me, like, I've written one book, but I'm still trying to find my voice as an author.
Yeah.
I kind of know what I want to talk about, but I haven't figured out how to make it all sound like me yet.
Yeah.
How did you figure that out on the author side?
Hold on. Let me see if I have something back here. I might be able to. Oh, here we are. I have, just like you, I have tons of books behind me. They're a little more concealed. But I've been writing books for as far back as I can remember. And back in the early days, I would write and illustrate my own comic books, and then I would go to the copy machine and print them out. So these are like early Raúl. Before I was even Raúl the Third, I was Raúl with my date. I would I would copy them at the Kinkos and then distribute them myself. Blah blah blah. But um, how did I find my voice? I think the characters that I created. So I was really interested when I started making these books, Lowriders in Space, the Vamos books. I was really interested in creating my very own, with Kathy, of course, it's a collaboration, but with Vamos, I was interested in creating my very own cartoon universe, very much like the ones that I fell in love with, but I wanted to make them specifically for my grandma. My grandma passed away, but I imagined what would my grandma, my abuelita Catalina, my abuelita Susana, what would they think if they read this book? Would they see themselves in it? Would they laugh at specific details? I know that my dad loves it and my mom loves it. They're like, this, it reminds them of themselves and of their childhood. And so I was specifically making a cartoon universe set in my border town that I grew up in, specifically for my community. It's a love letter to my la frontera culture and to my city and to my young self. And because all of these characters are in some way a mishmash of all of these wonderful people, mi abuelito, mi abuela, Don Rufino, who I would watch walking across the mercado, mi abuelita Amparo, all of these people, the voices for who they were already kind of in the genetic makeup of the characters that I was drawing. So I guess that's in a way how I was able to do it.
That's amazing. It's like you found the voices in your head or the characters in your head that wanted to come out and you brought them to life. And like
Mm-hmm.
you, I also, like, the one book that I've written was inspired by my dad, and he was born in Puerto Rico, moved to New York, and so it was kind of like that journey inspired by. And the types of stories that I like to write and want to write are stories that are rooted in myself, my family, my heritage, my upbringing. And so it's really great to hear how those things come about. And I think it's really fantastic to be sharing this with the students out there today, because I think it's so important for them to hear examples of people taking what maybe isn't the mainstream culture and putting it out there in the world and it being celebrated so much.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all of the awards that you've won, it's just so fantastic to see.
Yeah. Well, it seems to me like you have a lot of amazing stories yet to tell about yourself and your family and everything that you absorbed growing up, right? And
Yeah.
I will say that even though, like you use the word mainstream, when we're growing up, it's pretty mainstream to us. It's exactly what we know and what we enjoy, sometimes what we hate, it's
Yes.
all of these things, but it is our world. And I always tell students, kids out there that the best way to create original characters is by looking at themselves. Make characters who look like you, because there aren't enough of them out there. And two, you can use not just yourselves as inspiration, but that supporting cast that you have around you on a daily basis, whether it's your grandma, your grandpa, your brothers, sisters, your pets, your close friends. They can all be a catalyst for the characters that you are about to create. And when you start doing that, when you start using your surroundings as your inspiration, you end up creating a much more realistic picture of the communities that we grow up surrounded by, which are made up of a lot of amazing people. Just earlier today, I was at a restaurant with my son, and we were eating Egyptian food, and so they were speaking in Arabic, and then right outside of the window, two people walked by speaking in Chinese, and there was somebody next to us speaking in Spanish. This is our country, and it's filled with all sorts of awesome and amazing cultures and people, and all of them should have a space on our bookshelves.
I agree. I think that is so cool. Um,
Yeah.
I think all of this talk about, where characters come from and like this idea of character development, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm-hmm.
maybe this would be a great time to do a little drawing demo, and I would love to see
Mm-hmm.
how you could pull a character out of thin air. A lot of pressure here, and I'm sure
Yeah.
all our audience would love to do that as well. I don't
You
know
mean
if there's.
do you mean a brand new character, or?
Oh yeah, pull a brand new character out. Now, obviously, but like maybe walk us through a little bit, like the process of how you might come up with a character if we give you some
A prompt.
a prompt, right? So I don't
Okay.
know if our audience members, if there's anybody out there that wants to throw some ideas in the prompt for what kind of character we want Raúl to draw. Do we want should this character be an animal? Should they be a human? Should they be big, small, happy, sad? Like, what kind of character is this? Just throw some stuff out.
Buenas
Well,
tardes from. Oh, that's not a prompt. That's.
that's one of the comments.
This is going to be good is also not a prompt. Oh, wait, it is?
Okay, here we go. Okay, an animal.
Okay.
You know what? I'll start us off. Here we go.
Okay, let me share my screen real quick.
Screen. Yep.
Uh,
So I created
that's not my screen.
Abby needs to throw it up there once you start sharing.
Okay.
Hold for technical.
Oh, I see. Hold on.
We'll be there in a second.
Okay.
Okay.
You see it?
Not yet, but Abby will throw it up. Yep. Now there we go. Okay. So
Abby? Oh, sorry.
I will. Christina said animal, so we're gonna go with that. I made this toy for myself a long time ago that throws up prompts for me, and the thing that it prompted was a handsome starfish. So maybe like a starfish that's like real dapper, that kind of. If that's enough to go on for like starting to get a personality, how would you start to approach something like this?
Well, this is kind of an interesting one because I don't know if you knew this about me. I was about to call you Abby. Dear Abby, Zara, I don't know if you know this about me, Zara, but a long time ago, well, not too long, maybe 5 years ago, I had the unique pleasure of working on a comic book called Do you know where I'm going with this?
I do, and I did know that about you, but that I swear this was not at all premeditated.
Yeah, so I drew a comic book called SpongeBob SquarePants, and I don't know if I remember how to draw Patrick, but I'm just going to go with that. I will. What's cool about these characters is that immediately it tells you how to shape the character, right? So what do you work with? You're working with a star. So stars have 5 points, and so 2 of those points are arms, 2 of them are legs, and then the top point is the head. I'm not going to make this Patrick, and since it's a suave, did you say suave? Or am I just
suave,
imagining
dapper, tuxedoed, however you want
Yeah.
handsome.
I'm gonna make this look like ¿cómo se dice? Like the Tapatía man, or the Tapatio man, or maybe a Zapata or something like that. So I imagine these bigotes. My abuelito Raúl, the first Raúl the First, he used to have this beautiful mustache. And he would wax the tips of it and curl it up, and I always thought that was awesome. Plus,
awesome.
Yeah, he had these amazingly thick eyebrows. Abuelo, how come I didn't get your eyebrows? ¿Qué pasó? And, so I'm going to start with that. So, I start thinking about stuff like that. Like, oh, my grandpa had these awesome eyebrows and a great mustache. And he would part his hair in the middle, así. This guy's got a pointy head, so it's going to be an interesting part. That's for sure. And my abuelo, he worked at a fruit stand, but he was the manager of the fruit stand. So he wore button-down shirts, but they were like Southwest button-down shirts. So they had like these fake ivory buttons, short-sleeve shirts. And since he worked on the field, he had really strong forearms. I guess here he is ordering his employees around. So there he is. He's wearing pants, like some nice Wranglers, and shiny shoes. And then behind him, since I decided to make it my abuelo Raúl, there's some bananas. These are underwater bananas, okay? Everything's underwater. So let me put some bubbles. Burbujas, as they say. Burbujas. Here's some papaya of the sea. Back here, there's some coral manzanas. Some Ben's deep oranges. And that's another thing, right? You have to use what you're given. So that name I don't know where Ben's Deep is. Is it a place? It seems like I've heard about that place somewhere. So that popped into my head.
If you're a scuba diver.
Yeah, you don't want to get that. I hear blood comes out of your eyeballs if that happens. So that's how I go about it. What do you think?
I think this is amazing, and I love how we got a little peek into your process of how you take something that has nothing except a prompt, right? A handsome starfish, and you infused your character, your idea, your your abuelo onto this character, and it became something more than just a handsome starfish. It already has, you can tell that it has, or that he has rather, a personality. You can get, from the commanding way that he's pointing his tentacle.
I don't know what you call them, but yeah, let's call it a tentacle. So that's how it goes. Should I stop sharing the screen or?
Sure.
Okay.
That was awesome.
Thank you. And that's really what I guess storytelling is, and also, like you're absolutely right, Zara. You use your own personal experiences, your memories, obviously I took a little bit from SpongeBob there because I used to draw SpongeBob and I used the same body type, but then applied my very own style and memories and created a somewhat original character.
Yeah, no, that was really great. And I'm sure, like, obviously this was the first sketch. You know, the first sketch is always rough. If this character had spoken to you and you decided to develop it more, of course you draw it again and again and you refine it and you figure out the personality and everything more. But it's great to see just how you can start to infuse that character into this generic thing.
Yeah,
So
and another thing that we should add that really helps a character come into life even more so is the background. Notice how we decided that he was a fruit seller, and so you have to have some of that fruit and the fruit stand behind him because it was such a large part of their personality. And I know whenever I'm creating a character, I'm thinking about how their clothing defines personality traits, how where they live defines who they are. Like Cookie Dookie in Vamos lives in a corn-shaped house, you know, because he loves corn, things like that.
I love that. And it really is the details that bring things to life. And not only do they bring things to life, they're the things that help people feel seen, right? You know, if you know, maybe my abuelo wore the same type of belt buckle that your, you know, starfish abuelo did, and so there's this feeling of kinship that wouldn't be there if it was just a generic, you know, belt buckle or just a generic thing.
And that's exactly what we're trying to do as artists, right? Zara, is we're trying to communicate and help people feel seen through our shared experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that brings up, you know, maybe something that's a little more difficult to talk about, but, you know, we're writing these personal stories. We're really digging in deep and we're writing things that are personal to us or inspired by personal memories or our experiences. And I know that you've had a recent occurrence where people were kind of saying bad things about this book, which is amazing.
Oh,
you
yes.
know, right?
Yeah.
And it can be hard to hear that, especially when, one, it's unfounded, and the other thing is that this is so personal to you. So how do you deal with that when people don't like your work, when people, you know, are making fun of it or trying to say that it's something that it's not? I feel like that's something that all creatives have to deal with at some point or another, you know, this, you know, the outside critic coming in and saying something. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, going back to those negative comments, obviously we live in a pretty volatile period of our, you know, country's history. Although it's been these type of comments have been going on since the beginning of time. But what I will say is, the people who were leaving those comments also had no interest in the book itself or in pretty much any kind of book. They are just there to antagonize and to try to spread negativity. So I would say to those who are who get angry or feel down about somebody attacking their culture, their background, that the best thing to do is to completely ignore those people and to continue to make the work that you know is important and has a space on shelves across the country, simultaneously understanding that you are making these books for kids who have never seen themselves represented in books before. These are books that make them feel proud of who they are, where they're from, where their parents and grandparents are from, and they also help to give them pride while simultaneously canceling out all of the racist BS that unfortunately they have to listen to because of these incredibly irresponsible adults. So, yeah.
I think that's really good advice. So basically, ignore the haters and keep doing the stuff that you're doing. And I think that is
Yeah.
really good advice for anybody, especially if you're feeling like people don't like the stuff that you do. Just keep going,
Yeah.
keep going.
Don't worry about them.
Um, do you ever struggle with having an idea in your head and not being able to get it out quite right? Like, do you keep working at it, or do you walk away, or how do you figure out an idea that just doesn't seem like it's working, even though you know there's something there?
You know, right now I'm working on the fourth Vamos book, the 10th World of Vamos book overall. It's called Vamos, Let's Go Read. And I'm writing the script right now. And yes, there are moments where I'm like, what comes next? What should I do for this next part? Or how am I going to wrap this up? Or what would be the perfect beginning, you know? And I'll write like a page or two, and then I'll, pace around the house or go for a drive. But another thing that I do is sometimes I'll go and watch a movie or hang out with my son. I'll work on another project altogether. And the amazing thing about your brain is that it could juggle all sorts of things simultaneously. And so if you do come to a moment where you're stuck, just go do something else. Start another project, and I promise you that eventually the solution, because your brain will be thinking about it in the back somewhere, the solution will just like pop right into your head, and it'll be like, aha! And it'll happen at the most inconvenient time too. That's probably the most frustrating thing, is that, you'll be like right about to lay down for bed, or you'll be in the shower, and you'll be like, oh darn, I better keep repeating this thing so that when I get out of the shower I can actually write it down.
Those ideas pop
Yeah,
up
it's funny,
every
like
time.
this book here, Stunt Boy in the Meantime, I had to complete all of the illustrations for this book in 3 months. And so in a case like this, I had no time whatsoever to second guess myself, And sometimes that's the best advice I can give you as well, is just get it out. It doesn't matter whether it's silly or the best thing you can possibly do. Just put it down on paper and then move on to the next page, and then the next page. And before you know it, you have a 263-page book that you've illustrated, and it's awesome.
That's amazing. I have to say though, that's really good advice for anything, even just for like a first draft or getting a story out, is to, because I used to like labor over everything, and I would go back and edit, and I would never get anything done. But
Yeah.
then when I started just like getting it all out, no matter how silly it sounded, like I actually started getting somewhere. So I think that's
Yeah.
like amazing advice.
Yeah, I mean, you can only imagine, like, when Steve Hillenburg wrote down SpongeBob SquarePants. Like, to anybody out there, that would be like, what are you even thinking? Like, that's the silliest idea I've ever heard. And it probably was. But now, who hasn't heard of SpongeBob SquarePants?
I mean, that is a very good point. So put down all your silly ideas. Maybe it'll turn into an animated show.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of Stunt Boy, like how do you find like collaborating with an author different than working on your own books. Do you have, I mean, obviously there's a different process because you're not writing the story, but is it different trying to create somebody else's characters, or do you use a similar process?
Well, it is different because in any of the situations where I've worked with an author, it's reading a script and then suddenly your brain is creating images that it never would have created before you read the script. So
Right.
To me, that's pretty fascinating, right? Like you're basically stepping into somebody's head, but simultaneously you're reinterpreting their work to become your work. Which is kind of weird.
Yeah, I really love illustrating for other authors because it allows me to do things I would never do on my own. And also for me, who like, I still consider myself a fledgling writer, in some ways it's like I'm getting into their brain, and like, because I have to illustrate every page, it's like I'm picking apart the way that they built their story and filing that away for later. So I think it's so awesome.
I mean, absolutely. And I think that's one of the other benefits, right? Is you are learning from your collaborator and vice versa. They're also learning from you. And another thing that I love is this writer who you're working with, they have complete faith in how you're going to interpret their vision. And like I know with Jason, basically he handed me a novel, right? Oh, and then it was my job to figure out how to create the illustrations, and there was no direction of any kind. There was no like, and then this page, draw him like this or like that. None of that. It was all about his faith in my work and me putting it on paper. And I know we have to move to questions now, right?
Yes. We have some questions from the audience that we are going to move to. This is from Braulio a sixth grader from California.
Who's your favorite author?
Oh, was that live?
Favorite author? Yeah. Well, it was pre-recorded, but he popped in to ask you that question.
Braulio, thank you for asking me that question. It's a great question. Well, do you mean my favorite author or my favorite Arthur? Because my favorite Arthur used to have a television show on PBS, and I thought it was pretty fantastic. As for my favorite author, I have many favorite authors, and I think all of us kind of do it, so it's kind of hard to choose. Lately, I've been reading a lot of Jason Reynolds books. I highly recommend the Track series, starting with Ghost. I think that's a wonderful series of books. I also love reading, believe it or not, I've been reading this author since I was about 13 years old. Stephen King really got me into reading. I used to pick up his books at the grocery store. That was pretty amazing. And so the list goes on and on. I like reading Jack Kirby. I like reading Carl Barks. Who else? I love Dave Sim. All sorts of authors. It's hard. I mean, if you looked, check this out. I'm going to turn my camera. You see all that? I love reading.
That's awesome. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you who my favorite authors were right now.
It's hard. It's a hard question.
A whole pile of books over
there. I think. Yeah, I think Braulio was just trying to stump us, Zara. What do you think?
I think he was.
Yeah.
That is like the hardest question to ask an author or illustrator. Yeah. Okay, I think we have another question. This one's from Ella W., a sixth grader from New York, New York.
Do you change your drawing style depending on the story, or do you always keep it the same?
Change your drawing style depending on the story, or do you always keep it the same?
I mean, a lot of people tell me, like, I could immediately tell that was a drawing that you made, Raúl. And yeah, I think my approach to drawing is always the same, you know. But I do believe there are subtle shifts in how I have to approach every project. Like, you know, holding these two books up. Like, there's Stunt Boy, and there's El Toro. They're both by me, but they're two different kinds of characters. So
yeah, I'm
gonna leave that answer up to you, because you might not you, especially Zara, but what was the name of the young student?
Ella W.
But to Ella, I want to hear if you think I changed my style. I think I kind of do, but there's also I think another thing, you might be able to see like similarities between all of my books.
I think the way I like to talk about it is that even if I'm using a different medium, or if I'm using pen and ink versus like watercolor, marker or whatever, it all is translated through the same hand, with the same eye. So like all of the ticks and like whatever that I have that are just unconscious, right? Like I'm not controlling it. It's just how it comes out of me. Like all of that is the same, regardless of what medium it is. The style changes a little depending on the medium, but you still draw the way that you draw.
Yeah. Zara, have you ever tried drawing with your left hand?
I am horrible at it. I cannot do it at all. Are you good at it? I know some people really cultivate that.
No, whenever I try, it makes my brain tingle.
I can't even hold. My son is left-handed. One of my sons is left-handed, and trying to like demonstrate how to even hold a pencil with my left hand just feels so. I can't do it at all. I'm hopeless. I think we have one more question. From Andrea M., a seventh grader from Massachusetts.
Oh, Andrea, yo vivo en Massachusetts. ¿Así se dice en español? No sé, Massachusetts. Masa, like masa that you make your tortillas with? Ooh. No, go ahead. Sorry.
I make a good tortilla out of masa. What inspired you to become a writer illustrator? From Andrea M. in seventh grade from Massachusetts. My accent is bad.
Massachusetts. A ver, Andrea. Andrea, I wanted to draw, and I wanted to draw as a professional. And when I was a kid, I just drew for fun. But then when I was about 11 or 12, I decided that I wanted it to be my job. And when you are an illustrator, there are a few things that you can do. You can work in television as an animator or a storyboard artist. You can draw comic books. You can make books. You can exhibit your art in galleries or museums. And my suggestion to all of those youngsters out there, try doing all of them, because they all offer nice challenges and great adventures.
Awesome. I think that's a great answer. And now I think we have time. We have about 8 minutes left. And so I think it's a great time to do one more drawing. And
okay.
I think, let's see, let me scroll back through those comments and see if we can find something that somebody suggested. Let's see.
Can I make one request?
Oh, yeah.
No more starfish, okay?
I think that's good. Here, let's see. We have library horse.
You want me to draw a library horse? Or is that...
Oh, library horse would be really funny. Also, Abuela the Vampire Slayer is another one. Sad Mushroom was another one. I don't know. What are you feeling? You want to go fungi? You want to go
I'm gonna. How about I've heard all of these suggestions. Why don't I surprise you with which one I chose while I'm working on it?
I think that's fun. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do this. Let's see if Abby will allow me to do this.
Pretty sure she can be convinced. For those of you who don't know, Abby is
Gracias, Abby. Yeah, she's awesome.
The wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. We will not be pulling down, or will we? Will we pull down the curtain at the end of this?
I don't know.
To reveal our wizard, or?
We shall see.
Yeah.
Very curious to see what is going to come out.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't know until it's about to happen.
I think that is interesting. Now, here's a question that is something that I like to ask people because, well, I'll ask you the question first and then I'll tell you why. When you visualize things in your mind, can you actually see them? So if you close your eyes and imagined like a red triangle, can you see a red triangle in your mind?
I don't know. I just tried it, and it was just a bunch of rando spots.
So this is an interesting thing. There is this thing. It's called aphantasia. It's something that I learned about a few years ago, and apparently it means that you do not have a mind's eye. So you cannot see things in your mind when you imagine them, right?
Okay.
Or when you close your eyes when you think about it. So when people say, imagine in your mind's eye an apple. Like, apparently some people can actually see an apple in their mind.
Wow.
I can't. I just see black, right? And I thought everybody did, but apparently that's not true. Some people have very vivid, like, internal pictures. But what I found is that there's actually quite a few artists that don't have that. And so I'm always curious when I talk to other artists whether they have that or not. Because sometimes I think that the fact that it sounds like maybe you lack that like I do. And I feel like maybe some of my creativity comes from the fact that I have no clue what I'm drawing. And like, it just somehow translates from my brain into my hand in this like random way. I don't know. Maybe that sounds crazy.
I think as I'm drawing right now, I'm just kind of figuring it out as I go. And I think you might be onto something, Abby, although I will say that the word lacking really hurt my feelings.
Well, we lack in one way, but we make up for it in others. Because you have to figure it out as you're doing it instead of like trying to draw what you see in your mind. I don't see anything in my mind, so I have to like kind of figure it out on the fly. I don't know. You should look up aphantasia. It's like a
I will. That sounds great. And I used to, it is weird though, because there are times when I can see things, but I like right now I can't answer that question. Maybe I really can't, and I have a flash of an idea, then I know I have to probably figure it out. Oh yes, I know what I want to do now. Somebody said something about mushrooms, is that right?
Yeah, sad mushroom.
Okay.
I love this combination of everything.
Yeah.
Some sad mushrooms. That looks like Abuela the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm going to add one last thing in here just to give it some cool movement. But back here,
is that our library horse?
It's a random horse, like, that's a wrong mouth. That's the wrong mouth. But it's a horse kind of lost in the library and accidentally running into this epic, very epic vampire battle that's about to occur. And Grandma here throws these sad mushrooms at the vampire. I don't know why. I thought garlic was what vampires hated, but I guess there's something to these mushrooms that are also not liked by the vampires.
I love that.
Yeah.
Also, I have to say that I think it's great that you just said that's the wrong mouth. You drew it and then you just moved on and you haven't erased it all, because I think that is a tip that all people can like learn from. Just keep drawing. Forget about the mistakes. Incorporate them into what you're doing, or just ignore them because they don't matter. It doesn't matter.
They don't matter. And I honestly, like, I kind of like this mouth now. It looks kind of surprised at the same time, you know? So, yeah, there we go. That's how I drew Grandma Vampire Slayer, Sad Mushrooms, A Horse Lost in the Library, and Nosferatu themselves.
That is awesome. And also, I really love, somebody in the comments just said he's not a fun guy.
Good one.
Which is hilarious. Well,
yeah.
Raúl, thank you so much for your amazing drawings, for your amazing answers, for this great conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for so much longer.
Yeah, same here.
It's been such a great way to spend the afternoon, and also I hope that everybody agrees that it was a fantastic way to close out the second Latinx Kidlit Book Festival. So thank you.
You know, I wouldn't have had as fun a time as I had this afternoon if it hadn't been for you, Zara. So thank you so much for just leading and moderating and being amazing.
Well, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for coming, for spending time with us. It was really great to be here with you today. So,
absolutely.
So much.
Oh, and wait, hold on. We should hold up our latest book. That way people can check them out. These are great stocking stuffers, right?
Yes, definitely. There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks.